What's been up with Harrison?
Harry B is taking on the nickname Silent Night because
I like that. I saw that.
he's had a lot of quiet nights. I think of the 9 games, he's probably had 4 extremely quiet nights. In a win against the Cavaliers where the ball's flowing everywhere and Kevin Herter and Murray have their shots going and Monk's coming off the bench and he went 3 of 5 from three. And you got Fox back and all this stuff. I wouldn't pay too much attention to it. But over the last 5 games, Harrison Barnes has either been absent or just ineffective for the most part. He's had some good rebounding games there, so you got to give him credit where credit's due. But I think one of the more glaring aspects here is that through the last 2 fourth quarters, the Thunder game on Friday and then the Cavs game on Monday, he's played a total of 46 seconds in the fourth quarter. In both those
It's
fourth quarters combined.
crazy.
And all those 46 seconds came in the Thunder game. He didn't play at all in the Cleveland game in the fourth. And it's just like, people always say the old wisdom in basketball is it doesn't really matter who's starting so much as who's closing. And I think that was a huge thing for Keon Ellis. Like Keon Ellis was part of that closing lineup and played a huge part down the stretch against the Thunder. It's like, oh wow, okay. Like it really amplifies the fact, really highlights and puts a light on the fact that he is impacting the team in a positive way. And it's not like Barnes is hurting the team, but in terms of making an impact, it's been kind of a goose egg. He's not really providing much of anything. It's not really positive or negative. And when you were conceivably the third best player, at least at the start of last season and for most of last season, I think just being a veteran, being consistent, maybe kind of made him the third best player. But it's just like, so you have, I guess the point there is there's a standard, you got a veteran status, you're paid a certain amount of money, you're starting forward on this team. And you're like the least effective guy out there. I mean, Chris Duarte went into the game, got like 3 fouls in 3 minutes, ended up with 4 at the end of the night. But Brown kept playing him because, those were fouls that were kind of more to do with just kind of being a little too physical, not really getting handsy or anything like that. And also it was, if Duarte fouls out, it's not a huge deal. You've got other guys like Kessler Edwards out on the bench and whatnot. It's not like Duarte's shots falling right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, so like you can see a lot of like what Brown's thinking in the minutes he's giving out. And Harrison Barnes, meanwhile, is just not really doing anything, And I just to kind of go over his stats over the last 5 games. And as we're recording this, the most recent game was that Cleveland game. He's been averaging 7.2 points on 36.4% from the field and 26.3% from deep. So even as he's leading the team in 3-point percentage, over the last 5, he hasn't really had. I think he maybe had one good 3-point shooting game, but he's had a lot of offers, and he's kind of struggling to hit certain shots. I think he's shooting just below 50% in the painted area in these last 5 games. I don't know. I mean, it's weird. It's like Matt Barnes said on the pregame broadcast on Monday. It's like Harrison Barnes has the tendency to blend in, and you were saying last week he's got that disappearing act. And I don't know what's up with that. I can't really prescribe what's going on. All I can do is point out the fact that he's been an absolute ghost and hardly out there. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think it's an aggression thing, but also like in terms of shooting and stuff like that, things come to him and he's not really going to be a guy, especially given the teammates around him, to go get his own shot. So that like makes sense, but I think in the Thunder game, there were 2 instances, and maybe it was only really one. Maybe I'm nitpicking on the second one, but there was at least one instance where it looked like he could have gotten his own long rebound off a missed 3. He didn't really do it.
Yeah.
And also in these last 5 games, he's only averaging 1.8 free throw attempts per game. And on the season, he's averaging 2.5. He averaged 5 free throw attempts a game last season. And what did I always defend Harrison Barnes for last year, especially when his shooting wasn't getting off to a good start? It's the fact that, as many people know, that when the offense gets out of whack, when things kind of get out of, off kilter with the Kings, he can really settle things down, slow it down, allow everybody to catch a breath by getting the ball and taking it and, drawing a foul. And he's very successful at that. Mm-hmm. And you just haven't seen that as much. Now, granted, of course, they've won 3 straight. So 3 out of these 5 games we're talking about have been wins where maybe that wasn't as necessary. But think about like that second Houston game where everything was out of whack. I don't know if Barnes went to the line. I think he maybe went once. And it's just like, I don't know if it's an aggression thing or if he just gets a little too complacent. I don't know what it is. I mean, do you have a read as to what it is? Because he just doesn't seem. Again, it's not like he's necessarily hurting the team, but he's definitely not contributing very much.
Two things I guess I'll have to say. I mean, the first thing, it's like, it's just Barnes. It's who he's been since he's been in Sac. He just disappears, and then next week, just like we were talking about last week, like, Kings are on 3, time to panic. Harrison Barnes, time to panic. He hasn't done anything. Then he's going to come out next week and score 15 points a game, and then we'll be like, yeah, this is why the Kings kept Barnes. Very just inconsistent. He just has these. I mean, he's consistent and very inconsistent at the same time. It's kind of weird because he has these disappearing acts, and it's frustrating. And the other thing I just want to throw out there, you wrote an article on this topic this morning. The ones that were defending Barnes was like, well, now he's the 5th option. You know, it's like a different role, and so I kind of get that, but like, you know, like you just read his last 5 games. Fox is out 4 of those.
I don't know. I feel like the one counter I would have to that point, because that's a fair point. Like, he's the 5th option now. His role has technically been reduced. It's not like it's been reduced. Just other guys are stepping up and kind of taking the food off his plate, as it were. But again, it's like if that's the case, then shouldn't you still be out there for the closing lineup at least some of the time, or at least get some fourth quarter minutes? I mean,
That's true.
That's just it seems like the biggest tell. And again, it doesn't really matter what we think. It matters what Mike Brown thinks. It matters what the coaching staff thinks. I mean, again, it doesn't seem like they're going out of their way to say that he's hurting the team, because he really isn't. It's not like he's fouling a lot. He's not turning the ball over. But in terms of being a non-factor, he's really fulfilling that pretty well. So I don't know what it is. Again, I don't have a prescription for Barnes. I'm not even sure I could diagnose what the issue is, but these kind of side effects are clear. And again, Mr. Silent Night over here, the holidays are coming up. You know, he's like the most quiet. He's the most quiet caroler on the porch, you know, singing
after such a big opening night too.
Yeah. That first half, he's like, yeah, I'm done. I'm going
to. Yeah. First half too. I mean, he only ended with what, like 33 points off of a 27-point first half.
After 29 points in the first half, Harrison Barnes has made the decision to retire from the NBA.
Yeah, exactly.